Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hanging Out for a Living. I'm your host, Teresa Oshman, and today I am hanging out with Ruby Black. Ruby is the Executive Assistant and Director of Community Employee Engagement at Volvo Cars Rochester, and that's Rochester, New York. Um, she's also a Soles4Souls Ambassador and Membership Director for the Penfield, New York Business Chamber. Ruby is someone who truly understands that businesses about more than transactions. It's about people, purpose, recognition, and creating spaces where others feel seen, valued, and connected. So, from leading employee engagement initiatives to organizing large scale community impact projects and nonprofit partnerships, gosh, Ruby brings heart into everything she touches and everyone she touches. So today we're going beyond job titles and digging into the human side of leadership, connection, and community impact. Welcome to Hanging Out for a Living, Ruby.
Thank you for having me, Teresa.
Yeah, absolutely. Grateful that you're taking time out of your busy day for us. Let me ask you this. You wear a lot of hats, from employee engagement to chamber leadership to community initiatives. What first sparked your passion for bringing people together and helping others feel included and connected?
Wow, way to give me a loaded question this morning. It wasn't one moment. I think right away I think of three things.
Okay.
One is growing up with a single mom and then later in foster care, I never quite fit in. From the way I dressed to my shoes and then even my name. I went to school with a lot of Jessicas and Jennifers and all of that. So Ruby just really stood out and we know sometimes kids are not the friendliest. So I never quite fit in. I had a lot of anxiety before anxiety was
Mm,
really talked about, so I didn't really know what that was. So I didn't fit in and I didn't feel comfortable.
mm,
And then, so that's kind of like the root, right? The root cause, right? And
sure.
then I went to a bunch of different foster homes. And then my final foster home for Christmas. I had never really experienced a Christmas, and we were out in the community. My mom worked for the police department, and I remember getting gifts, and it was more gifts than I had ever seen before. And we ended up giving them to going in the cruisers and, giving them to families and seeing their reactions. And that really stood with me about how to give back. And then it wasn't until I was older and my mom and I are having a conversation, like in my mind, from my background, they were rich. And, when she shared with me, like we were barely surviving.
Right.
You guys were in sports and we were trying to do everything and, dad worked and had a job that, and I had worked and, we didn't have that much money, but I never felt like that, partly because of where
Wow.
I came from.
Hmm.
But it just really stood with me that like here these people are like barely making ends meet and still giving back to their community. So I really thought about that kind of growing up is like, how do I give back? And that kind of has rooted me because it's not always about giving money or time. It's, and I've kind of really brought that to Volvo. And the last thing I think about, and this will really resonate with you, is that at DSW, we had this system called People Are Everything. And we could send e-cards all across the country to anybody in the company. And I just thought that was really cool. And so I really started outsourcing on LinkedIn people that I didn't necessarily know and sending them a card when I saw that they had something going on or I read something in the news, like the company news.
Sure.
And somebody I didn't know reached out to me and said, "Thank you for the birthday wishes. It's the only birthday wishes I got." And I think I just stood there and stared
Mhm.
because in this day of Facebook and everything else, like it's all over there.
Yeah.
But that really resonated with me. So I think those three moments really kind of are my like focus, right? Are my North Star, really making sure that people do feel included. I give back and I share with people how they can give back without it costing them a lot of money. and that we recognize everybody in a simple happy birthday, happy anniversary.
Yep,
Hey, how was your day? Matters.
exactly. It does. It really does. Like you, I've had many people reach out to me after receiving a birthday card. I send them in the mail, and it's like the only birthday card I received,
Yeah,
and that's kind of heartbreaking. You don't even know what to say at that point.
right.
So, our next question takes us to you've helped
Oh,
lead some,
sorry.
no, you're wonderful. You're doing great. You've helped lead some incredible community-driven efforts, including large-scale shoe drives and fundraising initiatives. Is there a particular moment or story that reminded you just how powerful community impact can be?
Yeah, and it's twofold because 5 years ago I started a Souls for Souls shoe drive. And my goal was 500, and I honestly didn't think I was going to do that. I'm like, where do I have 500 pairs of shoes? And my friends came together, the community started coming together. We did a little over 700 that year.
Wow.
And so the next year, I'm like, all right, let's keep this going. And what I love about a shoe drive is I think every single person has a pair of shoes that they can let go of. Maybe they bought
Mhm.
it for one event or they just don't fit them right. And what Soles4Souls does is they extend that life of that shoe. They can give it a new life. So 700 the first year. So then I came back in. I was like, all right, let's do 1,000. And we did, I think, 1,300. So then, or no, a little bit more than that. I can't quite remember, but I kept on just like doubling it, doubling it, doubling it.
Sure.
And it really was because of the community, right? So like one person would tell a friend, and that would tell a friend, and then really kind of working with, the business chambers, really just getting the word out.
Right.
So many times I hear people be like, "Oh my gosh, I wish I would have known that. I just threw these away."
Yep.
And I'm like, why are we throwing something away? And it's sometimes we feel uncomfortable. We don't really, maybe our shoes are stinky. We don't know. And what Souls for Souls does is they clean them up and stuff like that. So fast forward 5 years, and last year we did over 15,000 pairs of shoes, which was
Incredible.
absolutely incredible. And it was that really like talking to businesses, explaining to them how easy it is. This is a great way for your employees to give back without asking them to take time, without asking them for money. Um, and then what does those shoes do for the community? And I think I've been really lucky because I've been able to go over to Honduras and really kind of see, what our shoes do over there and how that impacts the community over there. So it's not necessarily just our community in the States, but community somewhere else, that those shoes, something as simple as a shoe that we don't even think twice of sometimes when we put them on, how much that impacts.
Exactly. And also, we don't think twice about throwing them out,
Yes.
right? So yeah, yeah, it's absolutely amazing. And folks, we're in the same town. So Ruby has shared some stories with me. And if you want to hear those, you'll be able to connect with Ruby later on. I'll tell you how to do that. But thank you for sharing that. So, Ruby, a lot of businesses talk about culture and engagement. But creating environments where people genuinely feel valued is something very different. What do you believe organizations often overlook when it comes to employee and community engagement?
Yeah, I think every company, I think every person, right, like wants to do it. It's just sometimes when we're running a business or we're short-staffed, it kind of falls off the plate. What's been really great about Volvo is that we are part of the Garber organization, but then essentially is we saw in our building that we were doing it, but we needed to make sure that it was still a focus. And so that kind of came to play. And I have to say that I'm probably the perfect person to make sure this happens. Um, and it is on the forefront. I don't allow any of the minutia, right? Any of the chaos or the craziness of life to get away from it. I start every month out with a calendar that recognizes our associates for their anniversaries and their birthdays. And then, we make sure that there's at least two fun things that our dealership is doing, whether it's we're hosting a lunch for them. We did a hot dog race contest
Right.
last year. So we are completely thinking outside the box.
Yeah,
And people can participate if they want to participate. But it's not doing the same old things. It's
sure.
really kind of thinking about, and we always include our customers to join us in this stuff. Um, and it's just really making sure that we go down to every single level. When I think about, 90% of my work staff cannot, well, it's not that they cannot, but they are commission based. So
Okay,
for them to leave work to go do a volunteer event with me, that's losing money out of their own pocket.
true.
So we've really kind of come up with some ways on how do we help them give back, whether it's we're doing Thanksgiving dinner and they are helping us pack up boxes for needy families. Whether it's them giving $5 to pay for a raffle.
Sure.
So I think those things really matter of keeping in the forefront, and then coming down to your employee levels and not expecting that everybody can do one event. It's not a one size fits all.
Right, exactly. So important. And I'll tell you something, Ruby, if I were looking for a job, I would come and apply. Because I know what you all do over there. It's awesome. So, last but not least, for someone listening right now who wants to make a bigger impact, so whether it's inside their workplace or in their community, what advice would you give them about where to start?
Yeah. I think it's, we want to go in sometimes and reinvent the wheel.
Yes.
Um, and we don't have to do that. So I touched on raffles. And so when I got to Volvo, the employees would pay $5 every Friday to wear jeans.
Oh,
And I
okay.
looked around and it was really only the salespeople that were doing it because everybody else wore a uniform. And they're working on cars, they're cleaning cars. So
Sure.
why would they want to get their jeans dirty?
Agreed.
Right? And we were only really raising about $20 a week. So I went to the GM and said, like, why can't we make this a raffle? I have a Cricut machine, I can make Volvo swag. Like, I think we can get more money. And where this money goes to is our nonprofit fund. So then we can give back to different organizations in Rochester. And again, something I'm super passionate about is just, giving back. And so is Garber, so is Volvo. So we started doing raffles and we have some elaborate ones, we have some fun ones. And now I'll have to say, like 3 years in, I am kind of tapped out with ideas. And so then my GM steps up and says, all right, so we're going to have each manager, um, do something. So we've been essentially kind of raffling the managers off, where they get to spend time with the employees. And so we went from, raising $20 a week to now 100, 200, and sometimes more.
That's so awesome.
Yeah. And then the flip side is we went from just giving back at Thanksgiving to Christmas to now being able to give back throughout the whole year for different organizations in Rochester that I hear need something.
Right.
Um, so I think small. I think we don't need to think of like, oh my gosh, something's not there because sometimes there are things that are already in place and we just need to build on it instead of
Mhm.
reinventing that wheel.
Absolutely. Great advice. So, Ruby, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. And, folks, if you want to continue the conversation with Ruby, uh, be sure to check out her contact information in the description of the video. And, shameless plug, if you enjoy conversations like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share so people can discover hanging out for a living. And until next time, thanks for hanging out with us and we'll see you around. Bye for now.